I'm kind of curious when you start to break down like a CI/CD pipeline or like whatever your kind of working style in this is. I would imagine like you're a developer, you're working on something with your CDK and like infrastructure as codes up there. So like between two developers, you pull down a branch and you're running this and you're making changes to that code. When you go to commit that code, is that when the CDK kind of picks back up into AWS and starts those builds on that side with LocalStack?
The workflow, like from a developer standpoint, like is typically there's okay. I'll either start from scratch where I have a blank local stack and I use whatever I use to deploy, and I'll deploy it locally. And then that nice thing again, we're running the entire app. We're not just there are some tools that can simulate different services locally in AWS, but like not a full app running with all the different pieces. Like it makes it much easier to iterate on these pieces and make sure everything's working right before I then just swap it over to like, okay, now I'm going to deploy it to AWS. And typical companies, like most developers, they'll do this stuff locally, and then they'll push it. They'll actually swap from using, say, CDK deploy to like local stack to CDK local. But in this case, you could actually even do that with local stack in your CI/CD testing,
Mm.
where like instead of running it against spinning up a cloud instance, it actually pulls the image, spins up in local stack, runs your tests, and if those tests pass, it keeps going. But at least you can do all of your basic integration testing can be done with local stack. So um, before it's pushed to even the shared testing environment or development environment of some sort, right? So that's the whole process. Like it's both speeding up your local development process, like iterations. So you're just pushing stuff to look to your local machine, instance, and that's just going to be faster by default anyway. And then when you're ready, you push it into CI/CD, and that CI/CD would then use local stack as well to run the tests and stuff. That's going to be faster. Ultimately, like the goal is you will have to test against AWS, right? You're going to push it then to AWS. You run your tests in AWS, some tests in AWS, and ultimately deploy to AWS.